Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. Please be joined by Rick Ballou. Into the night with Rick Ballou. Rick, it's been a eventful week for the Jaguars. They had the joint practice with the Dolphins yesterday, and it doesn't look like Liam Cohen's going to play starters Saturday in Miami for the preseason finale. So the hay's sort of in the barn. Give us your overall thoughts on Liam Cohen's first training camp.
I think it's been very good. I think it's been one in which I would imagine has been a little bit more fluid than he thought. I mean, coaches are; they have everything scripted to the minute. And uh, I don't know if a lot of you know the answer to that question, Hayes. But how much did things change 2 Tuesdays ago when he lined up and ran 40 plays where they just lined up, snapped the ball, and had the official blow the whistle, and then 2 days later, an announced scrimmage. It was actually announced then, but a scrimmage on that Thursday, and taking advantage and correcting obvious mistakes, whether it was false starts, whether it was not aligning the right way, mistakes they made as far as not generating enough offense, defensively. Kind of taking steps along the way. We saw absolutely nothing against Pittsburgh, and I think it really burnt them. And then, next showing when they got the 2 series the starters did against New Orleans, a little bit more of an advanced defense with a couple of blitzes, and we saw that nice stunt that Trayvon Walker was involved in. So I really enjoyed it. Even yesterday in Miami, I thought he was fantastic. I mean, he said 3 different things on 3 different topics that just blew my mind, especially about the waiver wire and how he's going to be adding players that are on other rosters. I think you and I've talked about this. We basically are somewhere in the neighborhood of believing he may add 1 or 2 players. And honestly, I thought the defensive tackle position group has been taken care of with the 2 additions they made during training camp. But overall, I just can't say enough about what he's told us. And so many of these coaches, it's look at Grant Udinski, for instance, that, he's a young guy, he's 29, but that's cliche. He's not going to give you anything. That's my opinion on him. But Grant Udinski, the exact opposite, Anthony Campanelli, the opposite, in my opinion. Certainly Liam Cohen, very impressive with the way he handled his first training camp. What did you make of it?
I agree. I thought for a first-time head coach, he did a good job of when he wasn't pleased, making it clear to the players with how he treated them on the field. I mean, I have no idea if he screamed and hollered at them behind closed doors, but we know that that's not as effective with this generation as it used to be with our generation. And so, how do you motivate? How do you get the message across to professional alpha males now of this isn't acceptable? And I agree with you. I thought he did that when he took them back to the basics in that practice after the Steelers disappointment in that preseason opener. And I do think he's done a nice job of sending the right message. I would agree with you. He's not shy about sending messages through the media, which I think smart coaches do. And yeah, I mean, obviously the real test will be in the regular season, particularly, if they do, have a rough quadrant of games, is he able to keep them together? But so far, I've been really impressed with how Liam Cohen has handled the team from a mentality standpoint, and I think he's been rewarded for it. I think the team has shown that they have taken those messages to heart, and they have played better. And so I'm certainly excited to see what they can do week 1 against Carolina. But I'm glad you mentioned his press conference yesterday, because I agree with you. I mean, I think we can do the entire episode on some of the things that he touched on, and let's start with the waiver wire. And that is refreshing, because coaches always sort of like to kind of have this, well, we love our guys, and we say it's going to be hard for us to find anybody that's going to be able to make this team. And he was very blunt. I mean, I think, and he was about a week ago, he was like, we have, I think, 50 guys that we like, which would indicate that there's going to be at least 3. Now, that was, I think, before they added Colin Saunders. but I still think it's going to be more than 2. I mean, I think with James Gladstone's connections with the Rams and all the players that Les Snead is getting ready to cut, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if of the 37 players the Rams are going to have to cut, James Gladstone doesn't love 3 of them. And, I wouldn't be surprised in Tampa Bay if Liam Cohen, if offensive player gets cut in Tampa Bay that he likes, if that's an ad. Well, now you're at 4. And then of the other 30 teams, or I guess that would be other 29 teams, how many, just random, whether it's a similar scheme or whether it's just a player that they think has big time talent, do they claim? So I don't know that it will be as high as 2013 and Dave Caldwell and Gus Bradley's first year when they brought in, I want to say, like 9 guys off the waiver wire. I mean, you walked into the locker room on Monday of week 1 and it felt like a new team. I mean, it was like you're walking through the locker room like, how do I not know, how so many of the why am I seeing so many players for the first time? But that was different. That was almost an expansion level roster. This is a roster with talent. I just think the mission is we are going to gut the players that Trent Baalke brought here, and mission gut Baalke is going to be further completed when we see this waiver wire, when we see the 53, but then when we see the waiver wire ads. Because while I don't think they necessarily have to go grab 6 or 7, I don't think the roster's in dire straits like it was in 2013. I just think that Gladstone, Cohen, I think they're going to see guys out there that they feel like are better football players than the final, 5 or 6 guys that make this initial 53.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I actually asked him that question about the roster, and I was shocked at his answer. I thought we were going to get the obligatory, it's a great camp, tomorrow's another day, competition. But he said no, 50, leaving 3. And then you look at position groups, and then you start to go through it, and it's like, well, where is he really going to add? And then you have to remember this is a 4-13 team. Okay, so when you get to the bottom of your roster, even though they're guys who've performed well, and that is what they're supposed to do in training camp. These are professionals. They're supposed to look good, and they have. But where do you add? Obviously, wide receiver. You're going to add there. Can he find an offensive lineman that he thinks makes this football team better? Is there a crafty veteran that's let go somewhere that all of a sudden you can look at and say, you know what? Yeah, this adds up. We talk about the 3 tight ends. Does he think he can get better there? We just addressed defensive tackle. How about the Sam linebacker spot? They really like Gardeck. Is Yasir Abdullah the guy? Is McLeod someone that Jalen McLeod, just put him on IR this year and develop him, a young guy that maybe can get better? Can they find a Sam linebacker, which is going to be used, 35, 40% of the time? We talk about all this competition at safety with the 3 guys fighting for the number 2 spot. Is there a safety all of a sudden out there that they either trade for or becomes available that day 1 he becomes your starter? So, it's fascinating because on the surface it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of available roster spots, but it's simple. And I was listening to Gladstone and Baselli yesterday on our airwaves. It's about getting better. And Baselli said every day it's about making this roster better. And I agree with you. The 9 years he spent in LA, he's absolutely got players out there. And I think he trusts what Grant Udinski saw in Minnesota. And he trusts what Anthony Campanelli saw in Green Bay. And obviously Liam Cohen, who to what date only brought 1 player over with him, right? In Hainsey. If there's a guy cut there. So, yeah, this is really going to be a lot of fun Monday when that 53-man roster is set. And then, once players clear the waivers and you begin to go after them, I thought all along 1, maybe 2, but right now I don't believe, again, it's going to be 7, but if I was to guess right now, I'd say probably 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good over/under, like 3.5, right in that range. And in getting back to what Liam Cohen said at the podium yesterday in Miami after practice, Boy, I thought it was really interesting what he said about the running backs. Now, we know they've got a surplus. They've done a good job with that room. Etienne, Bigsby, Tootin, LaQuinn Allen. They like the undrafted kid, Jackson. But, boy, I thought that was really interesting when he said, well, we got to figure it out because we only have 3 up on game day. Who's the healthy scratch at this point, Rick, if you had to guess?
Tootin, as good as he's looked.
Yeah.
Because I think Allen to them, I think Allen Jr. is a prototypical third down back and is really, really good in pass protect. And I think they trust him in the red zone. They trust him, in goal line. And you can really make the case that Tootin has been the best of the 4 backs. I mean, this is a 6-pack argument here. There's no doubt about it. And what I got out of that was it's one of two things. You keep 4, you dress 3, or was this his way of once again just saying, for the right offer, you can have Travis Etienne. For the right offer, you can have Tank Bigsby. And on paper, Bigsby doesn't look like the prototypical Liam Cohen back because he struggles to catch the football. We saw that screen pass against New Orleans. I mean, that was like a 40-yard pass from Trevor Lawrence. It was one of the shortest screens I've ever seen. I happen to think Travis Etienne has had a really, really good camp. And I think if you're trying to win a football game in 2 weeks against Carolina, Etienne, in my opinion, gives you the best chance to win that game with the Liam Cohen designed offense, which includes obviously the screen game. But Tank is a fearless runner. If it becomes a game where you're going to be running the football the way that Liam Cohen wants to run the football, then that defines really Tank Bigsby. So, I'd love to say this is a pleasant problem. Here's the one issue I have is, you talk with a lot of people about rookies, and a lot of times they're a miss in year 1. It takes them a year to develop. Jacksonville was lucky a year ago. Brian Thomas Jr., an A+. Cam Little, an A+. Jarian Jones absolutely contributed. And then you got, just a taste out of, let's say, a Jordan Jefferson or something like that. But it was a pretty good year. Can you expect your backs to come in immediately, the way that he had things a year ago? Obviously in Tampa Bay with a rookie back who was absolutely spectacular. Can you realistically rely on them, or do you need the veterans? So any way you write this story with the running backs would be believable to me. But I say that Tootin's the odd man out for Carolina, and I'm gritting my teeth here because I'm like, man, this guy looks so impressive. I mean, I'm so, I think his future is. I think he's the future back. I really do. I think next year at this time, he's your starting back. But I think in 2 weeks, he may be the guy who gets scratched. What do you think happens?
Yeah, that's what makes it. I would have kept all 4 of them up. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, certainly, I think you could do that. I mean, I think you could have 4 running backs active on game day. I don't think that precludes you from anything else with this roster that would be detrimental, particularly when you've got 4 guys that play at this level. So I was really surprised by that. I mean, really surprised that he said that. And
he knows that they're going to be unhappy. He knows that some of those guys are going to be unhappy.
I mean, I would think if I had to sit one for Carolina, it would be LaQuinn Allen, because I think Etienne can do enough of the third down back responsibility to get me through that game. But it's a tough call because look, and again, anytime Liam Cohen has been asked about LaQuinn Allen, he says he always does the right thing. Well, it's tough to sit that guy. I mean, if the head coach is consistently saying he is a pro's pro, he always does what is asked of him, and he does it at a high level, it's hard to say, hey, LaQuinn, you're a healthy scratch. So, I mean, again, it goes back to would you trade Etienne or Bigsby? And again, I wouldn't, because we just know the nature of the position in the NFL, and these guys are going to get beat to hell over a 17-game schedule. and you're probably going to need 4 backs. The odds that all 4 of those guys are going to be healthy for every one of these games is a 2% probability. So to me, I would want to keep all 4, but I'd want to have all 4 available on game day. So
Right.
but he said it so definitively. It was almost like, well, this is all, this has always been the plan. We would never have 4 backs active on game day. So I just thought it was, and again, we appreciate it, that kind of candor. But I was really surprised by it. And so, yeah, I'm the same way with you. Like, it's hard for me to say LaQuint Allen isn't going to be active for week 1. But if I had to pick one of the 4, because you make a good point. If you make Tank Bigsby or Travis Etienne a healthy scratch, well, they're going to Cam Robinson it. I mean, they're going to be they're going to make it so clear that they don't want to have anything to do with this staff or this team. I mean, then I think you've got a problem. And look, maybe you do it anyway. I'm not suggesting coddle players, but you do have to have, as a first-time head coach, you've got to be cognizant of when you make a decision, what the consequence of that decision is. If you make Etienne or Bigsby a healthy scratch, you've lost that player. You're not getting that player back mentally. Where if you make Tootin or LaQuint Allen inactive, while I'm sure there's disappointment, there's probably a little bit more of an understanding, and they're not going to have the gravitas to, have anybody in the locker room come up to them and say, hey, this is ridiculous. Whereas Etienne and Bigsby probably would have supporters in the locker room. So it's really interesting. I mean, honestly, I would have all 4 of them active, but it's clear he's not going to do that.
Yeah, and if you do that, then do you scratch a safety? Do you scratch a corner? Do you scratch an offensive lineman? How you going to piece this thing together is going to be really interesting to me. And then the other side of it is, what do you get if you move them? I almost think Travis Etienne is going to be more valuable to a playoff contending team around the trade deadline. If Jacksonville doesn't rip off a lot of early wins, do you look at it that way and say, okay, let's be honest here, this is a 4-win team. Can you double that in a year? Can you get to 8? Can you maybe get to 9? Is that going to put you in a position where you can win the AFC South if you feel like, because I don't think a wild card is coming out of the South. If you feel like, okay, yeah, you're still a little short, that Etienne's not coming back next year, do you move him to a contender before the trade deadline? Tank Bigsby, I think, will get you a little bit more now because he's a couple of years younger and he didn't cost anything. I think his salary is like $1.4 million. But again, you want to give up on a hard running back that, in my opinion, is going to get the most carries right now on this football team. I mean, I think Etienne could have 50, 60, 70 receptions in this screen game. So, that's another way to look at this. What do you get value-wise? You just don't want to give away these players. They both can be incredibly productive, at least, especially early on for the Jaguars.
Yeah, without a doubt. But before we wrap this up, who are some players that you think are in danger? That some of the bulky picks of Chad Muma, Cole, Abdullah. What do you think they do with Monteric Brown? Any thought on, is Mullins going to be the backup quarterback, or would you like to maybe see them, go out and get another veteran? Well, what are some of your thoughts on as we look to shape the 53 here?
If they think they can find a better quarterback than Mullins, absolutely address that. I think one of the two, maybe both, draft picks in the bulky era, Jordan Jefferson and Tyler Lacey. I would assume that one is definitely out, maybe 2. But we talked about the Sam linebacker position. They really love Gardeck. He hasn't shown a lot so far in camp. What does that mean for Abdullah? I'd IR a couple of these guys. I'd IR Cole Van Lannon. I'd IR Buster Brown. Now, I don't know the significance of Buster Brown's injury. We'll start to learn that in about 10 days when they announce.
It seems like he's more close than far away. Like with Ransaw, it feels more far away than close.
Right.
With Monteric, it feels closer than further.
Wouldn't you? I mean, I wouldn't risk it. With the COVID rules still in place, I'd put Rance on the IR. I'd put Jalen McLeod on the IR. I'd just IR him, bring him along. I don't think they really counted on McLeod this year anyway. I think they did with Ransaw, and it was a very unfortunate setback. But that's the moves that I would make there. Javon Foster's not going to make this team. I don't think Chad Muma is going to make this team. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Then it almost feels like it's only part one, because once they announce that 53-man roster on Monday, within the next 48 hours, they could add anywhere from, let's say, 1 to 4 players, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think it's going to be a really brutal 24 hours for the guys that make the initial 53, that know that they're the last guy in at their respective position group. Going to be a real disappointment. I think of all the things that happen in the NFL, that's the most cutthroat part of the business. Is a kid makes the 53 after busting his ass and gets that celebration with his friends and family, only to be told a day later, hey, sorry, you're now being cut because we're bringing in somebody else. And again, probably gets picked up elsewhere. I mean, usually if you make your club's 53 and then get waived, somebody else is going to, want a chance at you. And obviously the Jaguar practice squad becomes an option too. But boy, that's got to be so deflating. But that's professional football, and it's one of the reasons we love it. It's the most competitive sport that we have in this country.
Yep, no doubt. And again, the COVID rules in place. You have 16, and I'm even really interested in that, because typically with your 16-man practice squad, you try to keep as many guys that you have brought in and have worked with you for the last several months. I don't know if that's going to be the case around here. It almost feels like, and I'm trying to figure this out, but it feels like a constant flow with the James Gladstone era, where he's always going to be adding. And I wouldn't be surprised at all. And we talked about it, 10 minutes ago, that if this guy goes out and says, I can find 6, 7, 8 guys that we had rated much higher when we scouted them, who are now available. Let's get them and put them on the practice squad. Whereas it felt like in recent years, you might add just a couple of guys. You're going to keep everyone here in town. I think that's the Gladstone way, is that he's almost over scouted, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if that in fact does, but yeah, I think he's going to add quite a few players, and that includes the practice squad.
I think so. It's going to be a lot of fun when we do this next Friday, Rick. It's going to be we're going to have a lot to talk about. There's going to be a lot of transactions, I think, here in Jacksonville. It's going to be a lot of fun. But, man, thank you so much for your time. Always enjoy it, and certainly look forward to seeing you later today.
Thank you, Hayes. Good Friday to you, and should be a lot of fun both tonight and then throughout the weekend, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Guys, we'll be back on Monday with Frank Frangie to recap the preseason and see what did happen in the Dolphins game and maybe get a sense of the 53 as it starts to crystallize. That's going to do it for us. For Rick Ballou, I'm Hayes Carlyon. Thank you for watching Duval Rundown.